folks, this is Fat Guy Flies RC coming to you from the man cave. And I know several comments I'm talking about I really can't, I'm kind of tapped out on money. I couldn't buy any more planes, and that's still true. However, today I dedicated to taking my wife. She wanted to go do some shopping for clothing for her work, and I'm like, sure, you know, well, I'll go with you. I mean, she films for me all the time. It's the least I can do. And while we were over in an area of Brandon, outside Tampa, and there's a hobby town there. And she said, why don't we stop at that hobby town? I'm like, oh, okay, sure, not a problem. And we'd gone to several shops. And we went to the hobby town, and we were looking, of course, I didn't plan on doing anything. And while we're in there, I had this SS before, and I wanted it back, and I've been thinking about getting it again. And she said, didn't you have that? I'm like, yeah, I had that before. She said, well, why don't you get that again? That's a fun jet. You enjoy that. I'm like, before I gave her a chance to change her mind, I said, okay, sure. Like I said, I wasn't really planning, but we were there, and they had it, and I'm like, okay, sure. So we're going to unbox it and see about putting it together. I have an angel of a wife. I really do. So I'm like, well, my plane budget's already busted, so let's just go ahead and bust it some more. One thing is, it first had a big crack in the box, but we checked it out there. I pulled it out, and everything's fine. It's just the outer box. You're not flying the box, so. Anyways, and yes, I am going to be getting y'all an updated hangar tour. However, I've got several projects. You see the big boxes back there behind me. Some already purchased planes and stuff that I want to get them done and flown and bought and unboxed videos and everything before I do the hangar tour. This just popped out of the unexpected here. This is the 6S one, the SS, and it is the Habu Super Sport. And then I believe that the STS, the 4S version, is the Super Trainer Sport, I guess. But anyways, and like all E-FLITE planes, this thing is packed to where you can drop it off the back of a truck. Alrighty, let's go ahead and take everything out of the box and see what we can see. The Habu, and I stand behind my statement about what I'm about to say. The Habu is a great flying plane, but it is not necessarily, I mean, they dub it as a jet trainer, but I don't agree with that. And the reason I don't agree with that is because it is such a floating, easy to fly plane that it just doesn't teach you, to me, the jet discipline you need with an EDF. Because this plane will float and float and float and float and float, and then it'll start floating some more. And you can fly this one on 3S, or on 4S, or on 6S. 6S is what I'll be flying on, like a 3200 up to a 4000. Simple wing, one connector, because all you've got is ailerons. Okay, and just like any quality plane from any of these big manufacturers like Arrows and FMS and E-FLITE, you can see the cells, but you certainly can't feel them. This thing is set in the mold for a long little crinkle there in the tape, but that doesn't matter. Sensors for you can add a landing sensor to that if you wish, and I will not. Everything's already hooked up for you, and I guarantee you already centered. Okay. Very simple put together kind of plane. So we're probably going to go ahead and build two. There's your canopy, and with the ugliest pilot in the history of all RC. He has no nose. Call him No Nose Ned. No Nose Ned. Okay. A couple of my viewers were talking to me about my build videos, and that I've been taking some shortcuts, like when I'm putting 4 screws in and I'm putting this in, putting that together, that I'll speed through it. And they're like, well, we understand why you're doing that, but then you're talking while you're doing that, and we're missing tips and things that you're saying. So I'm no longer going to do that. I was just trying to make the video shorter and not trying to ground on like some of my competitors, which would love them to death, but love that. But if I'm sometimes I'm saying things that I don't think anything of, but y'all take it as an important tip, so I will not be doing that anymore. The one thing I'll be doing, like if I stop and say, let me get my tools and my materials together, we'll come right back. Well, then that, Or I may say, I'm going to stop, put in these 4 screws, and then we'll be right back. But as far as me just, mindlessly just stopping the video, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. Alright, like I say, everything is packed in here and very, very protected. Very small part count. Okay, at one point I do want to show, and it looks like they have fixed, I want to show you just by first glance. Get this box out of the way. We get the foam coffin out of the way. I'll tell you what, here's where no, we're not going to break just yet. We'll hold off. All right, there's your nose cone, or your exhaust nozzle, actually. And this, they ask you to put tape to hold that in, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not taking the exhaust cone off. I'm going to glue it in. Okay? But it's something I want to show you. This is a very important step. And I noticed this in the STS. Make really good, it looks like they've improved this. These hard points here. Make sure that those, yeah, it looks like they put a little extra reinforcements, but these weren't reinforced like this on the STS, on the first edition of the STS, and these came undone fairly easy up out of there, and then your wing was moving around. So just be aware of that. All right, got a big old. Well, I will not be adding an afterburner to this, not for the way that is configured. At least not a KM, so I won't be adding an afterburner to that. That's okay. But just hard brass fittings where you're screwing everything in. 4 points to screw the wing in. This is the most monotonous part about this. Is it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screws hold in the front nose assembly gear, and that's okay. I'm just letting you know. It's got a bind AR361 receiver in there. Got the extension for the bind, which I will not be using. And yeah, you got a smart AMESC, so that handles your reverse thrust. All right, let's get our plane stand real quick. You know what, let me go through, make sure it's just Phillips head screwdriver, and we'll be right back, okay? And we'll put this bad boy together. All right, in your kit, got everything out. In your kit, you're gonna have 2 baggies of 25 millimeter screws and then 16 millimeter screws. You're gonna put your wing on first. So you're gonna need all 3 of the largest screws, and then just 1 of these 16 millimeter, one of these medium size, or the next size down the machine screws. Okay. And I like to use these little magnetic trays. Okay, I'm gonna try to keep my voice down because I'm next to the mic right now, and I have found that whenever I do these build videos and I'm right next to the mic, well, then it sounds like I'm screaming. But I like these magnetic trays. All right, so you're gonna take 1. I'll put the wing on first. You're going to take 1 of them 16 millimeters, okay? There's no connections or anything like that. You know what? Real quick, while we're here, let's go ahead and tighten. Make sure we got our EDF is good. We're good and tight. All right, that's good and tight in there. Okay. You're going to take your wing. As you can see, it has the quick connect connection. Quick connect connection. It only fits on here one way. It's obvious how it fits on there. Put your hand underneath there and make sure it's good and seat it in. Okay. And you're going to take that 16mm screw. Okay, and that's going to go back here. Okay, where that's nice and flush. Then you're going to take your other 3, okay, the longer screws, drops there, and drops there, and drops there. Okay. Kind of support it underneath your hand. And whenever you start seeing the foam crinkle around that, then you know you've hit bottom. But sometimes they don't always have an obvious stopping out point. But when that plastic delver starts pulling in on that foam, like right there, you know you're there. That one has a very obvious stopping point. Okay. The other thing is you can look at the seam right here and make sure that seam is almost seamless. Okay. While we're here, we're going to go ahead and turn our attention to the nose gear. Okay. And this is quite possibly the most monotonous part of this entire build. Okay. And for this one, you're going to take 8 of these 8mm little bitty screws, okay? And that is these little guys here. And let's just make sure that they are 8mm. I've got one in my caliper here, which is a very handy thing to have, by the way. It's pretty darn close. That's all right. Yeah, that's 8. Okay, so we're going to empty that bag into our little metal magnetic tray here, which I'm telling you, if you're like me, you lose screws all the time, you know, and I've always got a loose screw, and then I got the thing where I'm putting them all together. Okay, well, anyway, if I can get them out of the bag, you gotta get them out of the bag, man, get them out of the bag. All right, so anyway, see, that way they stay right there. Now this is where you're going to take your screw. Okay, I'm pretty sure it's going to go like that because you want that air duct in. Okay, now this is very important. You're hooking up a servo lead, right? Okay, look at here. Look at what we got. Always hook up light to light, dark to dark. Okay, there. So it's going to the yellow will line up with the yellow, the brown will line up with the brown, and so forth. Okay. That way, when you're done. See how the yellow is on one side and the dark is on the other? Just make sure that's good and seated. This isn't going to move around very much, so I'm not too worried about locking that in. All right. That just goes in there like that. Then you're going to just take, okay, I'm going to put one of these in, and then I'll pause the camera while I put the rest in, because I'm not going to be saying anything. I'm just putting these in until they're nice and snug. Okay. Or what I'll do, I will fast forward through it. All right. Now, I've just went ahead and made all those nice and flush. That's in there like that. Back up just a touch. Well, I don't need to back up. I think I'm fine. We're going to install our main gear. Now, this is a slide and lock mechanism. You're going to be putting, if I remember right, the gear goes to the outside. So, I'm going to drop, there's a hole there, drop that in place, and these two catching points will catch. Make sure it's nice and flush, and they should hear a nice pop. There. Those are in there. Okay, we're going to do the same thing to the other side. You're going to put the wheel towards the front of the plane. Make sure it's in there good. And slide that around. Make sure it's good and seated. And that should have a nice pop. Now that's not going to go forward. Alright, so now that's done. Now we can turn our attention to the tail feathers. Alright. Our model. We don't need our plane stand for this because now we can have the plane can stand on its own 2 feet. It can earn its own keep. Okay. Alright. I'm going to position you. You're going to go for a little ride here. You know what? I am going to put this on the plane stand. That way we can keep you informed. Alright. Now, okay. Now this is where you're going to take, this is where you're going to hook up your, actually engage. Alright, if you look right here, you have negative, positive, and S. S always stands for signal. So you're going to grab your tail. Okay. The top port right here is rudder, and the next one's elevator. Well, looky here. They're already labeled. Okay. So let's take our elevator. This is bottom. And I know that the S is signal, so that's always going to be your light colored wire. I'm going to just let this tail, see how it's got them 2 notches and those 2 notches there. So that's just going to pull the wires out of there, tongue and groove that in there like that. And it's just going to sit down in there. That's how it sits. But before we dry fit that like that, let's go ahead and hook up our connections. Okay. Let them lay down in this little trough here, and it's obvious how they plug in. The signal, if you're facing the back of the plane like you are now, the yellow wire, the lightest color wire, is going to be to your right there. Grab hold of the front of the plane and let that just seat all the way in. Same thing for the rudder. Okay. If you feel resistance, you're probably putting them in incorrectly. Make sure that these wires fit down in that little trough there. Okay. Alright, put that tongue and groove, those 2 pegs, okay, and then let your whole thing just seat on down in there. And this nice thing about this trough is that these will keep your wires up and out of the way. Okay, now we're going to completely secure the back of our tail, our elevator. They look like wood screws. Let's tighten that. Let me show you. I'm show you where I'm putting that real quick. Right there. Yeah. That fits in there just perfect. Now, see the fingers down here? These fingers down here? I'm feeling that seam tighten up as I put in those screws. Yeah. You see the doubler's starting to kind of kick in there. Alright, so that's in there. Okay. So now, yeah, that's right. Now you're going to put on your, I wonder what, I guess that's just extra screws they gave you. Now this is kind of important here. And that you see, you got your big tiller arm, right? For your rudder. Okay? I'm going to take your rudder, angle that to where that just sets down in there. Like that. While you're here, go ahead and move that. It pops into place. You're going to hold that rudder off to one side. Okay? And you're going to take some more of these little 8mm screws, okay,
hold that rudder off to one side the best you can. Okay. I'll get it started. Let me get these other two in here. There's two up front on either side up here. Yeah, that's in there. That's the end there. Okay. Not liking the fact that I got them two big screws left over. Alright, that's going to go right there. Because E-FLITE's not known for giving a lot of extra screws. Alright, has a very obvious bottoming out point. Alright, this is going to be like overkill, but I'm going to grab this really long screwdriver. It just makes it easier to deal with that screw there. Gotta get in the teeth though. Maybe. Well, maybe that's just too big. Yeah, that'll work. Just be careful how much pressure you're putting on that rudder. Alright, that's in there. Alright, well, okay. Let's go through the instructions real quick. Other than putting that back exhaust nozzle, let's make sure about that screw. Okay, I put those three and that one in. Okay. We put all 8 of those screws in. We put in the main gear. Okay. We put in tongue and grooved that in, hooked up the signal. We put in those two 8mm screws to hold in the back of the rudder or the elevator, and then those 3. Okay, so one thing left it says to do, put the exhaust tube on and hook up your rudder linkage, but I don't do that yet. I don't do that until I've got the plane bounced. Let's go ahead and get our exhaust nozzle put on. And what this is, you can see these little like grooves here, and looky here. Okay, so that's going to just slide right in there, just like that, and that just kind of keys in. Well, you know what I'm going to do? Just because I don't ever plan on taking that off, you know, and if I do, I can put some very simple debonder glue. If I'm going to glue that in, number one, the tape looks nasty to me, and number two, I want it in there nice and solid. Don't need much glue. Just run me a little bead of glue. Just a little bit. Okay. It fits in there nice and solid already. Just screw that into place. And that's in there now. Okay. Well, you know what? We'll go ahead and trust E-FLITE that their servos are centered. Now, if you want the most deflection of any control surface, you're always going to go to the outermost part of a servo arm and then the innermost part of the control surface itself. Well, I'm going to split the difference. I don't think I need that much rudder, but I'm going to go maximum control here. Okay, fish that in, and then I'm going to go to the middle. I'm going to hold that in place. Look at that pin there, a little pin. You'll see it's like a little tooth. I'm going to drag it. I'm going to put it right to the next one in, 3/4 of the way in, and that looks pretty straight there. I'm going to pop that into place. You kind of feel it, and then I'm going to slide that fuel tubing up over that, and that is nice and straight on there. Okay. Well, you know what? Maybe it is off to one side just a touch, but it's straight here. This is what I'm mainly looking at. Is it straight at the top of the rest of the structure? Okay. All right. Well, as I hit the plane, let's take a look at what we've got here. So now, oh, by the way, these little pieces of foam, I just hot glued them on just to make it easy, that way it looks nice. All right. We have screws in here, 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 here. We made sure that the EDF and everything was nice and tight. Okay. Everything else is hooked up already. That's in there. So, you know what, folks? That concludes the unboxing and the build, basic assembly. Really, it's not a build, it's an assembly. The only reason I use the word build is because it takes up left lettering in the video. And most people, they respond better when you hear the word build. They think, oh, build, assembly, like assembly. You know. So, but that's pretty much it. Not much else to share as far as that goes. The next video we're going to do will be the complete radio setup, and we're going to do forward programming in it and set up the safe and the self-level. Well, safe is self-level, AS3X, and how to turn the gyro off. That way you can fly with no gyro, and we'll show you how to do thrust reverse. This will be setting all this up on an IX-14. All right, we'll be back. That'll be the next video. And thank you, Camera Precious, my wonderful wife, for suggesting that I get this plane. And any of you guys who are into this, you know, if your wife says, why don't you get that plane, or in any way indicates that she'd be okay with you buying it, we all know we're on the same page. Get it immediately, so she doesn't have time to change her mind. Because you never know when you're going to screw up next and you're not going to be able to get on a plane. All right, folks. Thank you for watching. Thank you for visiting Fat Guy Flies seeing what this crazy nut's all about. God bless each and every one of you. God is good. And this is the E-FLITE HABU SS. SS stands for Super Sport. And we're going to take her out and fly her real soon. But we got to get her bound up first. God bless y'all. Bye-bye. Don't forget, stay family and friends. The Jets.